without further ado, we'll kick it off. So let me share my screen real quick, and we will get into it. All right, you guys should be able to see this. So obviously, a lot of changes at Perch. Perch is now a Catapult company. So if you are new to Perch, that might be one of the reasons you're here. Or if you are an existing Perch customer, you may have heard. But overall, everything is staying the same. We are still the same Perch company, same people supporting it. It's an innovative product. So first thing that I'm going to start with is just a little bit of an agenda for today, some goals and what you can hope to get out of this. So we'll start with some introductions for myself and Kyle. We'll then spend a little bit of time on this deck with a brief system overview. I realize that some of you who are on this call might be existing Perch users, so that might be a little bit repetitive. But a lot of people on this call are also brand new. So we want to make sure everybody has a good base of knowledge of what Perch is and what we do. And then we'll dive into a demo with a focus on kind of be broad demo to start, but then we'll focus on a lot of our innovative new features that everybody may not have had exposure to yet. Kind of mentioned today's goals for new users, want to get you introduced to the product suite just as a whole, if it's new to you, and then for existing users, maybe you'll pick up a few things, a few best practices, maybe some things you weren't aware were in the existing system, and then hopefully you also get more comfortable with some of our newer features, which include assist mode, which is brand new, some of our new performance proprietary metrics, our new team exercise dashboard, and then a couple new things as well. And then one thing to note as well is that there should be a Q&A box towards the bottom of the screen. So as you guys, let's say you don't understand something, you just have a question about part of the product that maybe I didn't discuss at length, just type those questions in. Kyle will be aggregating those during the presentation, and then we'll leave 10, 15 minutes at the end to dive into some of those questions. So in terms of introductions, I'm Jacob, former co-founder and CEO at Perch, and then I'm the current head of strength products at Catapult. So I'm responsible for still running Perch, but then also gathering customer feedback, turning that into product strategy, and really leading that team forward. And then I'll let Kyle introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kyle Voigt. I'm on the Perch side in terms of customer success specialist. So my job is to make sure people that use the product are happy with the product and continue to use the product and gain more value from it. Previous roles, or I was the sports science guy for Austin FC and MLS. And then before that, I was in a similar role with USC in Southern California, not to be confused with the South Carolina one. So coming with a lot of practical experience and yeah, how can we help you as end users use the product better?
So yeah, the questions that you guys type in and things as well will also be great information for Kyle, and we'll take that back to the product team and the client success team as well. So that's one of the big reasons I brought Kyle in here today. All right, we will keep moving. So for those new to Perch, just wanted to give a high-level overview of what Perch is and who we are as a company. I think really our mission as a company is what's highlighted in blue here. We want to maximize every moment in the weight room with the goal of pointing at increasing performance and increasing safety, both in the weight room and on the field. So we are a platform that's really focused on a couple main pillars within the weight room, but we're trying to solve all those problems for you so that you can get the most out of the time you spend in the weight room. Honestly, get home faster and do your job more efficiently. A little bit about the company. We were founded in 2017 at MIT by myself and a couple of buddies. We were student athletes at MIT, emphasis on the student, less on the athlete when it comes to MIT. But it's really a personal passion of both great engineering and sports and fitness. Since then, we've grown tremendously. We've captured over 500 million reps on our platform, of close to 17 million sets. We operate across every continent in the world, every professional sports league in the US, and you kind of get a glimpse on who are the customers that trust us today on the right there. In terms of, I want to start just high level. If you have not seen Perch before, what is Perch? Really everything that we do focuses on that mission that we talked about, maximize every moment in the weight room. So it's how do we help you capture more information in the weight room, make decisions with that information, and do that as seamlessly as possible. And that starts with the way that we implement our hardware. So the main product that we sell is this small camera system that can effortlessly be attached to any weight rack, and that will pair to a tablet. So an athlete will walk up, they'll log in. We have a programming solution, so their workout will get pulled up onto the tablet for that day. And then while they lift, we're not using anything attached to the athlete, no tethers, no wearables. The athlete will lift like they normally do. And then we're capturing sets, reps, power output, speed, display that in real time. And then we save that for later analysis. So everything revolves around this camera system that really, in my opinion, very biased opinion, is the best in the business at being not detracting from the workout, right? That's the main emphasis. We want to be a pure additive solution for you guys. And then in terms of the software platform itself, right now we have moved away from being pure velocity-based training, which is where we started. That's still our bread and butter. But really, we branded ourselves as a software platform, a unified suite of tools that solve multiple different problems that coaches have in the weight room. The three pillars, which we have turned into three products, are called Plan, Evaluate, and Train, which you see here. Plan is a full workout programming solution. So coaches can write periodized workouts. They can deliver those workouts to athletes either on the tablet in the weight room that you saw on the previous slide, or via an athlete's mobile app. So they don't need to actually track movements via the camera to actually get value out of Perch Plan. We then have Perch Evaluate, which is actually a suite of assessments with a primary focus on jump testing. So right now you can actually use the camera to assess things like jump height, RSI mod, a variety of performance metrics, all through the camera itself. We're not meant to necessarily replace force plates. I would say it's more similar to a jump mat, but it's the aim here is to allow coaches to get readiness metrics and performance metrics in a much quicker fashion, right? If you had 8 cameras in your weight room across every single one of your racks, you're able to jump test much more consistently, much more readily, and capture some of this readiness data more easily, and maybe at a more opportune time, which is right at the beginning of a workout. And then finally, we have Perch Train, which is our velocity-based training tool. So using these cameras to assess sets, reps, power output, speed, store a lot of that data for later analysis. And what's really cool is how these products work together. So the whole strategy is this feedback loop here. So because you bring this data, a planning tool, a readiness testing tool, and a velocity-based training tool into one single platform, you can create some really cool experiences that you wouldn't be able to if all these products were separate. So as an example, and I'll show you this later, but we have what we call Perch Intelligence, a couple of different features that allow you to make better use of the data. So an example of that would be dynamic goals. So what dynamic goals does is when you program, let's say, a percentage, it'll look, so like a percentage of a 1 rep max, it'll look at each individual athlete's historical lifting data, and then it will look at how fast they typically move that weight. And then we will automatically and dynamically assign a velocity to that athlete in the weight room in real time. Right, that experience is only possible when you have programming and planning product with a velocity-based training product like Perch under one roof. Right, so we're really trying to make these products work together and very synergistic. A little bit about just the hardware products and the setups. If you haven't seen it before, so that camera system is obviously the main product that we sell. We can work with any tablet, Android, iOS, etc., any existing tablet that you might have. And then the product can plug directly into the wall. That is really typically what we recommend. But if you don't have access to a power outlet, we also have these external battery packs, which can kind of take the place of a wall outlet. And then you can just take the batteries off the rack. They're magnetic, and then plug it into the wall overnight to recharge. We also have a couple additional pieces, such as a rack adapter. Typically, about 95% of our racks that we mount to do not need a rack adapter, but there might be certain instances in which our product does not mount to a weight rack out of the box, which we can provide this special adapter piece, and then a couple other things like carrying cases and tablet mounts as well. And then finally, I've kind of walked through this, but just the typical experience that people can expect with Perch is it's very seamless, very closed loop. So people plan on our product. Typically, you can envision the start of the workout will consist of a readiness assessment. You'll quickly do some type of an evaluation to start the workout. Athletes will train seamlessly like they always do. Coaches will analyze the data after the fact, and then you repeat that process in a very seamless fashion. So that's everything to get started. So from here, I'm going to jump into a quick, I'll just begin the demo. So let me pull this up. Cool. All right, you guys should be able to see this. So there's a couple different software products that we offer. We mentioned those 3 products, but the way you'll interact with the product is in 2 different ways. So what you're looking at right now is what we call our dashboard, essentially a web application. You'll access this through any internet browser. And then we have our tablet application as well, which is very similar to also our mobile application. So those are very similar experience. So I'll go through the tablet application today. The first thing that you'll do when you log in to the system is you'll be met with a user management screen. I will breeze through this because a lot of these tools will be very similar to what you've seen maybe with other systems as well. But this just gives you a very seamless way of actually managing all of your users. So right now what you're looking at is every user within our Perch organization. You can filter and create new teams. So if I was to click a specific team, for instance, we can filter down to that baseball team as an example. We give you ways to effortlessly add users. So if I click add a user, we can add a user to a specific team if we want to, or we can create a brand new user and then just enter in their first name, last name, email address if you choose to, and a variety of other things. You can also upload users directly from a CSV or an Excel file. So there's a variety of ways to actually manage and create users. So all pretty easy. You can delete or deactivate users at any time as well, or remove them from teams. Other things that might be of interest here is 1RMs. So we give you an effortless way to actually manage one rep maxes in our system. This is really valuable when actually writing programs. So if you were to write a plan, say let's program 75% of an athlete's 1 rep max, we would need that 1 rep max within our system to know how much weight to assign to each athlete. So this experience gives you a way to actually enter that information. It's pretty easy, but what a couple cool things that we've implemented recently, which might be new to some users, is right now you'll notice that I'm on back squat and that we actually now have a default % 1RM setting. And there are 3 ways that Perch enables you to set 1 rep maxes. One is you can actually just enter a 1 rep max manually, which would be like kind of the typical way you directly measure a 1 rep max and you enter it in. The other way would be estimated. So that's one of the powers of velocity-based training is Perch is actually, and I'll show you guys this in a second, but we are actually, every time an athlete lifts, we're creating a load velocity curve. We're leveraging historical data and we're predicting an athlete's 1 rep max that way as well. So you can use an estimated 1 rep max to actually guide training loads if you choose to. And then we also have linked 1 rep maxes as well. So if I was to pull up something like a front squat as an example, you'll notice that the settings will change here and the default setting is actually linked, and we've linked that to back squat, and we've said the front squat 1 rep max is actually 80% of the back squat 1 rep max. So if you don't want to use an estimated 1 rep max because you don't have enough data and you're very used to just linking and you're not directly measuring a front squat 1RM, this is a great way to actually set 1 rep maxes as well. So very easy to manage your 1 rep maxes, which is a pretty core part of programming with Perch. And then other things here would just be things like groups. So these would be like much more flexible ways to organize your athletes outside of teams. So you could do specific rack groups, return to play groups, things like that. So all very easy. From here, once people set up their organization, they'll typically dive into actually writing plans, writing workouts. So from here, in order to write a workout, I will pop into this plan tab right here, where we're met with our programming library. So everything that you're seeing here is actually all of our published programs. Along the top, you'll see a couple different options. So you'll see templates. Templates is actually a group of exercises, let's say, that you're consistently using in workouts or in full programs. It gives you an easy way to templatize some of your workouts and drag those into workouts in the future. Workouts are, like they said, they're preset workouts that are part of a periodized program, which you see on the left here. And then exercise is your exercise library. So I'll spend a little bit more time here just explaining what the exercise library actually is. But let's say we want to create a new exercise. We can click create new, click exercise, and it'll allow you to create any exercise that you want. So if I want to create a test exercise, and then we can add a video link if we choose to. This could be any video link you have, public video link, such as a YouTube video. This is really valuable if your athletes are training outside of the facility and you want to instruct them on how to perform movement. And you can add some metadata about the exercise as well, such as what is the movement pattern, what type of equipment are we using, the sidedness, so is it a bilateral or unilateral movement, is it a single or double weight, what the 1RM setting is, so is this linked, is it entered, is it estimated, and then what variables you choose. So something that's pretty new to the Perch system as well is typically it used to be just weights and reps, but now you can do time and distance as well. So you can program conditioning through your Perch plan. So you definitely don't need to be in the weight room to get value out of this product. So let's say you've created some of your exercises. This comes preloaded with a variety of different exercises, but obviously you can create new exercises on the fly. And now I'll show you what a program actually looks like. So let's say I go into this webinar demo program that I've pre-created. When I first pop into this program, what you'll see on the left here is essentially a table of contents of your program. So we've pre-created this 3-week program. Each week has 3 days associated with it. And right now, week 1 is highlighted. So we are now looking at the entirety of week 1, and each column here is a day of that week. So we have day 1 lower to upper, full, etc. If I was to click into week 2, everything would change. You'll see week 2 would change here. So pretty easy to understand, pretty Excel-like. If we wanted to dive into a little bit more detail within each program or in each day, I can click these 3 dots here and go into the detailed editor, which will just pull up a specific day, which will give you some additional information. So as an example, you can add additional comments. You can choose which metric you want your athlete to look at. during a specific set, etc. So I'll stay in this week 1 view right now, and I will show you what it looks like. Let's say we want to add a, actually, I'll do this first. Let's say we actually want to duplicate a week. It's actually a 4-week program. We can click these 3 dots here and duplicate, and now we have week 4. And let's say for whatever reason, I want to add a 4th day to this week 4. We can click this plus button to the right here, scroll to the right, and we can click this plus button here. And then it will prompt you what type of movement or what type of category movement you want to add, whether it's an assessment, an exercise, a task, or a template. So an assessment would be a movement that's part of our evaluate suite. It's colored in this light blue here, so like a CMJ. So I can type in a CMJ, arms fixed, and then it will prompt you how many reps do you want your athlete to do and what metric do you want them to see in real time. So we could pick RSI mod as an example. If we continue to build this out, let's say the next thing I want them to do is a back squat. I can type in back squat. You'll notice this little camera icon here means it's trackable with Perch. So the camera will actually track the movement, but there are a variety of other movements. Let's say the split squat jump untracked does not have a camera icon there. So that would just be a movement that an athlete would manually complete outside the weight room or even inside the weight room. So let's say we do a back squat. When I click back squat, there'll be a few other options here. So it'll ask, let's say we want to do a 5x5 at 75%. So we can click 5 reps. Let's type in the percentage, 75%, and then we can type in a goal. And within the goal, you can select any preset goals that you choose to, whether it be ballistic goals, zone goals, drop goals, etc. Or you can type something in manually. So I can do, let's say 0.6 to 0.7, click enter. And then because it's 5x5, I can very quickly duplicate that down a few more times. And now we have our block of exercises built out. You can very easily, let's say I want to superset that for some reason with a Romanian deadlift. Let's say we build that out and that's also a 5x5. We can then superset that directly with the back squat as well. So you can easily flow through creating a workout this way. You can duplicate days, etc. One other very cool feature here is right now we're looking at this week view. So I pop back into week 1, we're looking at a week view, which is essentially a full week. But if I pull up what we call a load progression view, you'll notice that day 1 of each individual week is highlighted. And this is a great opportunity to actually do exactly what the name of the feature is, which is progress the load. So coaches are really like to look at each specific day. And then let's say week 1 is 70%, week 2, 72%, week 3, 75%, if you're linearly periodizing as an example. This is a great view to facilitate that. And you can also change the days that you're looking at. So I'll go back into the week view and I will touch now on a couple different topics here. So we talked about very early when I was going through that presentation of some of the cool things about bringing planning and velocity-based training into a single solution. That is our intelligence suite. So right now you'll see here that as part of this back squat set, the first 2 sets here are just typically 70% with a preset goal, right? So these are all manually set. But then you'll see that this next set here is set of 6, 70%. And then instead of selecting a manual goal, we've selected what we call a dynamic goal. The dynamic goal will dynamically preset or dynamically assign the velocity goal for the athlete based on that percentage. So to show you what that looks like, I'll pop into this tab here and I will come back to this later, but I just want to give you guys some context to these features. So this is actually my historical data from last year for bench press. And then down here, you can see that we are leveraging my historical data to actually form a load velocity profile. So you'll see that, and for those not familiar, a load velocity profile on the y-axis, we're seeing the best mean velocity of each set. And then on the x-axis here, we're seeing the weight that I've lifted. So every single dot you see here is a set that I've done over last year, which is the year of 2024. And this gray line here represents my load velocity curve at the beginning of 2024. So January 1st, 2024. And the blue line is December 31st, 2024. So you can very clearly see how the load velocity curve is shifting over time. We'll use this data to predict a 1 rep max. But the main thing that's relevant in terms of programming is that we now have an equation that is connecting velocity and load. So as an example, if I mouse over this line, we see that we're predicting that I should be able to move, even though I've never actually lifted 115 pounds, at least over the year of 2024, we're predicting that I could be able to move 115 pounds at 0.89 meters per second. And then if we move down the load velocity spectrum, similarly, it would say I can move 237 pounds at 0.27 meters per second. So how this works with actually programming is now when a coach sets a weight, we can look at each athlete's individual load velocity profile and predict what speed they can move that at and set those ranges. And vice versa, we can actually suggest weight. So if you as a coach wanted to program a specific speed, but don't know what weight an athlete should lift to hit that, we can dynamically do that as well. So if I was to jump back here, dynamic goals is going from weight to velocity, and we're kind of doing that math and the work on the back end. And then what we call suggested weight. So instead of picking pounds or percentage, you pick this little owl symbol called suggested weight here, and then you actually manually set the velocity zone. And then you actually can't type into the weight here because Perch is making that suggestion for you. And that happens automatically across all of your athletes. And one important thing to note is on these load velocity profiles, every time an athlete lifts, these are getting updated. There's no special testing required. We've done a lot of work in the back end, a lot of data science to ensure that these are both, so that these are accurate. So every time an athlete lifts, we'll update these load velocity profiles to ensure that loads and velocity prescriptions are as accurate as possible. Additionally, one brand new feature that we just came out with is something we call assist mode. So for dynamic and suggested load, these are based off of, these recommendations are based off of past performance, right? Like workouts that have happened prior to this one, but assist mode is interset. So we'll use actually today's performance to make some real-time adjustments or recommendations. So when you mouse over to trackable movement, you'll see that this little icon come up. So this will indicate that assist mode is on. And if I click into this detailed editor here for this movement, you'll see a couple toggles along the top. So this will indicate that this is exercise is being tracked by the camera, but you also see that you can enable assist mode across an entire block of movements. So what this will do, and I'll show you on the tablet in a moment, but if an athlete cannot hit this specific goal, as an example, we'll actually recommend and take some weight off. If they can actually exceed that goal for their best rep, we'll recommend them add some weight. So it's a very quick toggle to turn that on for your trackable movements. Once you're ready to go with your movement, you can, or your plan, you can add exercises or assign it to people. So you can click this assign button and you can assign it to full teams or individual users as an example. And then you can toggle or publish it on and off. So right now it's published off. I can publish it on, it will automatically save, and then it'll be pushed to the tablet. So just like that, we've created a periodized program that athletes can now access on the tablet. The main benefit here is obviously you're consolidating your programming and your velocity-based training into a single solution. You can enable some really cool features like we just walked through today, but it also makes the experience of using velocity-based training in the weight room much, much more seamless. It really reduces the button presses in the weight room by the athletes because the sets, the reps, the weight, the exercise, everything is pre-selected. So that makes the workout much more efficient, but it also makes the data a lot more accurate because you're not relying on your athletes to actually pre-enter a lot of things. So with that, I'll actually go over to the tablet side of things. So let me just share that screen. And the flow here is, I showed you how to kind of write a workout. I will then show you what does it look like for an athlete to actually use the app in the weight room. And then we'll go back to the back end and actually show you, now that we've actually captured some data, what does it look like to actually look at the data long term. And then we have a couple other features like leaderboards that I'll walk you guys through as well. So this is kind of the homepage of our tablet app. So when an athlete first walks in, they'll log in the top right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log myself in. I'm going to log Kyle in. And I'm going to log, looks like Kyle got a workout in this morning. Oh boy. And then we'll do Connor, and then we'll do Johnny Beats. So you can log in as many athletes along the top as you want. So for instance, if I just logged in one more person, so let's log in Kurt as well. You can just scroll across the top. So there's no limit on the number of people that you can log in. And to switch profiles, it's just a quick tap between athletes. You'll notice that when I click on Kyle, it'll pull up his historical data. So this is actually his lift from this morning. And you can click into any one of these sets and look at this historical data as well. If we wanted to actually pull up a program, we click this home button in the bottom left. And then it will actually, what's really cool is it will prompt you to pull up basically we'll look at the last program that you've done, and it will recommend a next workout for you. So this is actually a workout that I'm doing. And then basically the last one I did was on August 20th, 2025. It is saying the next workout up in your program is this run. So I could click start on that and immediately go into it. So it makes it really easy for the athlete to actually find these workouts. If we want to just go in and see, okay, I want to look at an entirely new program, I want to see everything that's been assigned to me, I can click this assigned tab and we can find this webinar demo program. I can click view, and once I click view, it'll prompt you to say, okay, which workout within that program do you want to start? So let's start this day one lower, which is that basically the last workout that I showed you guys. It'll log everybody in to the same program to start. But let's say I wanted to log Kyle into a totally different program. He's doing a different variation of the program or just doing something different altogether. I can click on Kyle, click this home button, and let's say I just want to start this workout right here. Kyle, I won't generate any data for you, don't worry. I'll click start, and then it'll ask you if you want to change the workout for everybody on the tablet or just for Kyle. So if we click just me, you'll notice that when I go into Kyle, he's on a different program. When I click myself, totally different program. So it makes it very easy to toggle back and forth between athletes. Let's say Kyle was midway through his program. I had just started. When I switched to Kyle, it would find where he is in his program and immediately change everything about that set. So all Kyle would have to do would be click start to go. So very simple process. What I'm going to do is I'm going to log Kyle and Connor out so I do not destroy any of their historical data as I go through this. So once you're ready to lift, you'll see that this workout starts with a readiness assessment, so this counter movement jump, and then it moves into that back squat and then that RDL that we were looking at. So as I'm ready to lift, I'll click record, and let's pretend I'm actually jumping. I'm generating some fake data here, but athlete jumps. This is the experience of what evaluate looks like. We'll capture those reps. We'll display that information in real time. This is in inches, but I get switched to a different metric, like an RSI mod, for instance. I'll hit complete, and then that will immediately progress me to the next part of my workout. So you'll see that everything about the actual movement itself changed. Back squat was selected. We have a comment that's been added here. Weight changed, goal changed, everything without me having to touch anything. I can then go back to Johnny and it will prompt him, or it will then, everything will change automatically to the set that he is currently on within the workout. I can go back to myself. So I will just click start and roll through the workout. So I'll click start. You'll notice that the manual zone goal has been set. So you'll see this green bar along the bar graph here, and then weight has been set as well. So if I want, let's say I do want to change the weight on the fly, again, quickly click where it says 240 pounds, and it will pull up the weight here. I can easily toggle or change the weight by adding plates. So we make it very easy. We'll do the plate math, the graphic will update. You can type in percentages if you want, etc. This typically is not used because everything's pre-programmed in this case. So as I lift, we'll get real-time feedback. We'll color code the reps based on where they are relative to that zone that has been set. So right now, gold is above, blue is in, and then if it was below the zone, it would turn red. I'll hit complete, and then it will immediately progress me to the next set. These last two sets here, we're using the dynamic goals and the suggested weight. So you'll see where this goal is. It says automatically assigned. This means that this is dynamic goals. And then this little owl symbol where the weight is will indicate that this is a suggested weight. So if I click into here, you'll see that the dynamic goal has been set. We have this little owl symbol indicating Perch intelligence, and that this goal has been set. I will actually log Connor back in just to show you how individualized this is. So if I go into this set 3 here and click on Connor, you'll notice that because this is based on percentage, the weight is different between myself and Connor. But you also notice there's a very slight change in this dynamic goal here. For Connor, it's 0.52 to 0.59 because he moves his 70% at a slightly different speed that I move my 70%. And then for my dynamic goal, it's 0.57 to 0.65. So if we click start, you'll notice that this looks basically the same, but you'll see that this faint little line going across the zone, which indicates the exact position, that the exact speed that the load velocity curve is telling me I should be lifting this weight at. The experience is the exact same through a dynamic goal. So I'll hit complete and we'll progress to the next set. This is now the suggested weight set. So you'll notice that this now says manual zone goal, and then this is actually suggested weight. So this little owl symbol shows up on the weight now, and the weight has changed. And if I click into that weight, you'll actually see that we're recommending a range between 207 and 240, and we're picking flat in the middle of that range as a suggestion. If I go to Connor as an example and click into his set 4, you'll notice the same thing. So it will suggest weight. The zone is the exact same, but it's just recommending a different weight for him based off of his load velocity curve, right? So I hope that illustrates kind of the power of leveraging some of this historical data to really take a lot of the guesswork out of training, allowing you to program with velocity, but having Perch kind of guide on the weight side. Now, if we were to go to RDL here, you'll notice that the symbol has changed a bit, and that's because RDL is using assist mode. So let's say we're just doing 135 on this. Assist mode will not recommend a starting weight, but it will recommend a change based off of the performance of the last set. So let's say we're actually doing 135 RDL with this manual zone goal. I'll click start. Hopefully this works all right because we're generating fake reps. What should happen in this case is because I've actually lifted above the zone. In theory, the load is a little bit too light for me based on the stimulus that a coach wants me to achieve on that given day. So if I hit complete, all right, we're doing it on the fly here. Let's try this again. There we go. So basically what will happen is after that second set, we'll make a recommendation. So because my first rep or my best rep was above that load block or above that zone goal that a coach has set, we're now saying that that weight was too light and we're going to add some weight. So we're going to say weight automatically changed to 140 pounds. We've added 5. And then you'll notice that, so that is an indication to the athlete. So the athlete sees that notice, they accept that notice, and then this weight is now highlighted in blue with that little symbol to just be very clear that the weight has changed. So we're really trying to help you as a coach, like use the power of velocity-based training much more easily. A couple other things on plan. You'll notice that some of these are not trackable movements. So let's glute bridge as an example. If I pop into here, you'll notice that instead of this button used to say start, now it just says complete. So if I hit complete, that'll just complete that movement. So even though there is not velocity or power data associated with that, you're still able to track all the volume, all the compliance in the back end. As an example, we do deliver compliance reports. So you as a coach can validate, okay, how much of the workout was completed or the workouts completed by my athletes. So we will track everything beyond just velocity-based training tracked movements. A couple other cool things on the tablet here is if I'll go back to select this back squat here. If I click this exercise detail in the bottom right, this will actually pull up a list of all the historical back squats that I've done. So it gives you real-time access to data. So if I go in here, you can see which ones were tracked by the data. So if I click into one of these sets, this was done on Tuesday, May 27th. It'll say set of 4 at 245. And I can click into that and I can see exactly what I did during that day. So we'll see this was 4 reps. This was the red. So I clearly did not hit my dynamic goal on that day. And then something that's very unique to Perch as well is we will capture bar path. So this is maybe a little bit tougher to see. So let me look up hang clean. Just a much more interesting bar path. It's been a long time since I've done some hang cleans. So should pull up some data. So if I just pull up, let's say the set of 3 at 165, the experience will be very similar, but now we'll actually be able to see bar paths. This is looking at the sagittal plane. Because our camera is a 3D camera, we're capturing 3 dimensions of movement. So we're transitioning this bar path if you were looking at the side of the athlete. So it's very useful, especially for younger athletes where you're really trying to coach technique as well. A couple other cool things about this is it makes it super easy to actually edit things on the fly. So let's say an athlete did enter the wrong weight as an example. You can come in here and change the weight very seamlessly. So I can type in, this was actually 185 and click save. And then that will get updated in our backend. You can add goals. You can port in the errors you want, all of that good stuff. Let me change this back. So my historical data is accurate. Click save. So that is most everything. There's definitely some other cool, I guess I'll show one other cool feature here. Pull up Johnny. If you want it to be as seamless as possible, marrying plan with something we call auto mode is probably going to be the best experience. So what auto mode is this little button on the right here. It's essentially a timing threshold. So if you set it to, let's say, 6 seconds, and we see something longer than 6 seconds in between reps, we're assuming the athletes react to weight and will automatically switch to the next athlete. So as an example, let me just go into here and find preferences. So the auto mode timer is currently set to 4 seconds. So if I start Johnny's set, he'll do these 3 reps. And then after that last rep, it'll start counting down from 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we'll switch to Jacob, right? And then we'll stay on me until it sees at least 1 rep, which is when it will start that countdown timer. What's interesting is that you'll notice that everything about that set changed with me. So literally all the athletes have to do is click start once, and then you can roll through the workout. Let's say Jacob went to the bathroom. Johnny could just click his name, click reassign set. It will go back to Johnny's weight that he should be lifting, and everything will be reassigned, and you're cruising through the workout. All right, there's some other cool stuff that not that cool, but that's the main stuff on the tablet. I know we have maybe 15 minutes here to go through the rest. So I will jump back to the web application to go through the rest. Pull up here. All right. So what I'll spend the most of the rest of the time doing is just going through some of the reporting. And this gets into the new scores that we released, the new team exercise dashboard. There's some really cool stuff here. So in order to get to the reporting, you'll click Insights in the top. And then essentially how this is broken down is you have some preset kind of templatized reports along the top. So this is the new team exercise dashboard. So that's front and center. But we have other reports, a readiness report, which is going to be essentially indicating certain levels of readiness based off of the jump test that you're doing on Perch. We have train sets. So this is exporting all of the data under our train product, which is all of your main strength movements. Evaluate sets. This is exporting all of your jump data. Then we have plan compliance as well. Just to show you what this looks like, if I was to go into this train sets report, it'll pull up essentially a pretty clean export of your data. You can filter it down to users, exercise that you care about, teams and groups, and then you can name this report and save it if you choose. And then once you do that, it'll be accessible in your Insights library here. So it makes it very easy to templatize your reports if you have a specific report you want to access repeatedly. The difference between a report and a dashboard is a report is what you saw. It's basically a table of data that you can very easily export, while a dashboard is just a set of visuals. So I'll actually click into this dashboard here, this one, which is some anonymized historical data from one of our customers. So this will give you a much better sense of exactly how this team exercise dashboard can be used. Actually, before I do this, I want to jump to just a really quick thing around our scores. So I think I'm extremely excited that we just launched some new scores. We call them, which we're leveraging a ton in this new dashboard. So we're calling one a total performance score, one a speed score, and one a strength score. So in order to kind of visualize how these scores work, I made this very quick presentation here just to show you guys this. So hopefully it takes a couple minutes to run through this. So I've kind of hit on the load velocity profile a bunch over the course of this presentation, but it is really core to these scores, and I think core to actually making sense of a lot of this data. It is kind of the holy grail of strength training or data, in our opinion, because it really does profile an athlete, and it gives you the best sense of how an athlete is improving over time. Right. So on the left here, you have a typical load velocity profile. We're fitting a line to a bunch of data. And then typically what you want to see is that load velocity profile shifting up and to the right. So an example, right, velocities on the y-axis, you're moving heavier weights at the same speed, which would indicate an improvement, or you're moving the same weight faster, which would also indicate an improvement, and that curve shifts and up and to the right. But I think what we've seen over time is it's really hard to make sense of this data, or really hard to make get value out of it, because typically you're looking at a graph like this, which is one athlete for 2 periods of time. So if you start asking questions of how is my athlete done every month over the past 12 months, right? What does the actual trajectory of that load velocity profile look like? You would need to have 12 lines on this graph, which would be very difficult to make use of. Or if you want to compare the load velocity profiles of an entire team, right? You'd have way too many lines in this graph, and the lines would be crisscrossing. It's really hard. So what we found is that we needed to condense or collapse this line into some single metrics that coaches can much more easily track over time or benchmark their athletes against one another, right? So that is really core to what these Perch performance scores are. I know there's a lot of text here, but if you focus on the graph on the left, we've condensed this line down into basically 3 main scores. So we have something called speed score, which is essentially here, it is essentially the y-intercept of a load velocity curve, which is the unloaded max velocity, if you will. So it's kind of related to how fast an athlete can move when there's no load on their back. The strength score is essentially the x-intercept. So you can kind of think of it as like an estimated 1 rep max. So it's very much correlated with, it's kind of how the most weight they can move. And then what we call a total performance score is the combination of those two. So it's basically a speed score multiplied by a strength score. So as an example of how this can be useful is something like this. So you can imagine there's in this example, you can imagine that this is one athlete that is increasing in training age, or you can imagine this is multiple different athletes, right? So in this example, let's say it's multiple different athletes. Athlete A has a high speed score, right? Really high y-intercept, pretty low strength score, right? Pretty twitchy athlete, but needs to work on their absolute strength. Athlete B, very well-rounded, high speed score, pretty high strength score. Athlete C, low speed score, high strength score. And then athlete D, younger athlete, underdeveloped, right? So looking at these lines, let's say you had 15 more of them on the graph, it's really hard to understand where athletes are, how they compare against one another, what they need, right? How we need to improve their programming in order to get them where they need to be. But you can condense these lines down into a couple different metrics and then put them on something as simple as, let's say, a quadrant chart, right? So you see this athlete B who's well-rounded in quadrant 4. You have this athlete A who is twitchy but weak in this quadrant 2 right here, so on and so forth. So it gives you a really great opportunity to compare, benchmark your athletes, understand where they need to improve, especially, and then benchmark your athletes against their past performance as well. So you can envision that each one of these lines was actually an athlete, let's say when they were freshmen all the way up into senior year, or benchmark athletes against the same athletes of the same positional group as well. There's a lot of really cool uses of this data. So if I was to go back to this dashboard here, just to show you, right now I'm looking at a football team's data for back squat between specific dates. So we can actually see how this total performance score, we can aggregate that score. So essentially every single load velocity profile into a single number and average that across an entire team, right, over a specific time period. So we see that total performance score actually increased for that team by 3%. Their speed score went up by 4%, and their strength score remained pretty constant. A couple other really cool things on this. I'll skip over this for now. But what this graph, all of this data is anonymized, so you'll see a bunch of unknown users here. But what's really cool about this graph is right now we're looking at change over time of a specific metric for each athlete, right? But if you were to look at specific strength training variables, let's say weight lifted over time, that's not really going to tell you anything about their performance, all right? So what's really cool about these scores is you can collapse these scores into single numbers, or these curves into single numbers. So right now we're looking at total performance score across an entire team over that time period. So you can see which athletes' performance score or their load velocity profile actually decreased over that time period and which athletes increased. And we've built really cool ways to interact with this data. So if I actually wanted to click on this user, I can click right here, it'll open up in a new tab, and I can actually dive into this user specific data, and I can try to understand why their load, what actually happened. And what you're seeing here with this user is that their load velocity profile actually shifted down because a lot of their data was actually under their historical load velocity profile, right? So you can actually validate a lot of this data that you're seeing here. And it's a great way to actually pinpoint or see which athletes do I need to pay attention to, or is my programming having the right impact? You can see that, again, the strength score, as an example, didn't change much. So if I was to toggle down strength score here, you'll notice that it's being offset. It looks like this team really traded speed for score during this speed for strength during this training period. We had more athletes, it looks like, decrease their strength score. But this is all assumptions, but if I was to look at their speed score, right, we'd had more athletes increase their speed score, with a couple athletes really substantially increasing their speed score. So it's a great way to validate your program as well. This chart right here, very similar data, but just much more in a table format. It's a great way of seeing which athletes have the highest performance scores, which athletes have the highest strength scores, et cetera. And then you can also filter by change, see which athletes actually have changed the most or changed the least as well. And then this graph has gotten, or scatter plot has gotten a ton of really cool feedback. So I won't spend too much time because I talked about it in that presentation, but it's essentially taking what we have here and we're making it real. So what you have here is strength score on the x-axis, speed score on the y-axis, and we're plotting all of your athletes, different positional groups onto a plot, so you can really start identify mouse over athletes. I can see who they are, etc. And then a couple other cool things on this chart or on this page is this is not related to those scores, but we have essentially training distribution over time. So we start or default to average mean velocity. So you can see by rep count or any other kind of volume metric, are we working in the right areas, right? You might program a certain goals or certain attributes that you want to develop, certain speeds you want your athletes to be within, but this allows you to see over a specific time period where we actually hitting the velocities that we want to. You could also do weight and percentage of 1 rep max as well, as opposed to just velocity. And then finally, kind of the very typical way to use velocity-based training or see if your athletes are progressing over time is actually look at one of these performance metrics like a velocity or power output and then hold intensity constant. So let's say we wanted to say, I could actually go down here and see, okay, this team spent probably the majority of their volume between 60 and 65%. So I can come up here and I can say 60 to 65%, and I can hold that constant. And then I can look at, let's say, best rep mean velocity. And I can look at this on a day period. So I can see, are my athletes across the entire team moving their 60 to 65% faster over the course of this training period? And it looks like overall this team is over that time period, right? It's subtle, but they are. We can also drill down specific positional groups if we want to. I won't do that here. But there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with this. The last thing to touch on this dashboard is what we call this train status. So what train status is essentially looking at an athlete's most recent performance or the performance at the end of this time period, and it's comparing that performance relative to their load velocity profile. And if they are performing under their load velocity profile, we will flag that either with a red or a yellow. So if I was to click into this, we can actually see which athletes are performing under their load velocity profile. And let's say I just click this user -14%. It'll take me to this athlete's page, and we'll see that they're kind of sporadically around their load velocity profile, but a lot of their most recent data was actually underneath the load velocity profile, which would indicate that this athlete might be somebody that you want to pay closer attention to, have a conversation with, just follow up with, right? So that is our new train dashboard, kind of scores, train dashboard, everything packed together. We as a company are emphasizing really doing a lot. We certainly want to surface a lot of the raw data. If you want to export, get into another system, that's certainly an option. But we also want to try to answer questions as seamlessly as possible, right? We serve a number of different types of organizations, and we think there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do just with the dashboards and the visuals that we built here. In the last 2 minutes here, I'm going to touch on just Leaderboard, which the Leaderboard is also very new to us, or not very new to us. We've had a Leaderboard, but we've made some really substantial improvements to it. So one being, we now have a leaderboard library. So if you have typical leaderboards that you like to use during various times of the year, you can save leaderboards and then you can access them in this leaderboard library. So I don't know actually which any ones of these are. So I will, this looks like it's Kyle's leaderboard. So I will click on this leaderboard and I'll actually pull up the leaderboard here, and it will load in athlete data. So most coaches use this as you could actually put this up on a TV in the weight room, and this will update in real time as athletes are generating data. On the top here, we can edit this leaderboard in any way we want. So if I click this pencil icon, I can click the pencil icon. And right now we have 3 separate competitions going at the same time. They're all configurable. So you see this one on the right, it's today for all teams. This one is this week. This one is this week. And then you can actually see which one has further edits applied to it. So I can click this little additional edit button here, and you'll see that this one has additional edits because this one is focused on back squat while the other ones are not. Right, but this will show you everything that I can edit here. I can change the date range, I can change the exercise, I can change the metric that we care about. I can even add some filters to the intensity, velocity, weight, percentage of 1 rep max, etc. You can add a custom logo in the back if you choose to. So we were actually just on a conversation with one of our customers last night, who's an NRL team out in Australia, and one of the primary use cases of velocity-based training, even on the most elite levels, is intent. How do I drive intent? How do I get my athletes to compete? How do I get my athletes to love coming into the weight room? And putting numbers in front of them, creating competition is certainly one great way to do that. So we've really built a lot of features and functionality to enable that. I think what else to show you guys? I think the last thing here, and I have a couple minutes for questions, is just this new home tab. I touched on it a little bit in the exercise or in the team exercise dashboard. I'll actually click into, I lost it. Yep. So this is some more demo data we have, but if you click this home in the top left, this is where you'll be brought to. This table is what we call our athlete status table. And it's a great way. It's the reason it's the home. So when you first log into app.perch.fit, this is where you'll be directed. It's just a great point to flag any individual athletes that you want to pay attention to. It's a great jumping off point to the rest of the product. So what you'll see here is I'm looking at the last 30 days. So you'll see on the top is like any movement that the organization has done by volume in the last 30 days. And then you'll see these athlete status or these status scores that we've kind of gone through already. So I can filter this or sort this. So I can look at status scores from worst to best as an example, and then flag any specific athletes. So I can pull 100. And then I can click into people that might be flagged specifically red. We also have a couple other things on here, such as planned completion. So we talked a little bit about compliance reporting. So we can actually see which athletes are not hitting their completion on the last workouts they completed. Goal accuracy would be another thing. Are athletes lifting within the zones that we've prescribed to them? etc. So this is a great jumping off point. And then if I click into any one of these, it will allow us to drill down into the specific athlete's data. I didn't really touch on this too much, but this is kind of that drill down. We're looking at athlete specific data a little bit more, all of their individual reps, etc. So the way to think about it is the home tab or the team exercise dashboard allows you as a coach to identify how is my team doing, who needs attention, and then you can drill further down into individual athlete data as well. All right, I know that was a lot, but I will stop there and then see if we have any questions. So I appreciate you guys following along.
All right, Jacob, I've got a few questions from the chat. So if you're ready, I can definitely ask you
Yeah,
those.
let's do it. Yeah, go for it.
All right, so from Andrew Welch, he's asking, can Perch be used outside on the practice field to measure speed?
It currently cannot. It is very much a weight room specific device, and the underlying camera is sensitive to sunlight. But I'd say we have some stuff in the works that potentially would enable that in the future. So stay tuned.
Awesome. From Kate Snow, she's asking, is there a way to see which of these new features are available for which tiers?
Great question. We do have, I'd say reach out to us afterwards if you have questions, if you don't have access to it. The team exercise dashboard and assist mode, which are the two, and the scores, which are the three main brand new things, those are available to everybody. So you should have access to those regardless of what tier that you're on.
And Adrian Martini has asked, can we easily integrate with Catapult? He's asking as a data scientist with knowledge of APIs for load monitoring, readiness, et cetera. So specifically, he's asking, could we combine force velocity profiles with accelerations on the pitch, running imbalance, et cetera?
Yeah. Without understanding your use case a little bit more, I would say yes. We have an open API. So we can go into, let's go settings, integration. We can generate some API tokens here. And then if you are using a third-party system to pull your GPS and your Perch data into a single spot, 100% absolutely possible. A lot of our customers do that. And then I do think one of the cool things about Catapult acquiring Perch is there's probably likely going to be a lot of that integration happening organically here. So stay tuned for that as well.
Awesome. So Kyle Bayer, great name, by the way. Can you measure vertical jumps anywhere, or does it need to be directly in front of the rack? Just wondering if I could take this to different places to measure jumps.
Yeah, the algorithms are very robust. So it doesn't need to be attached to a weight rack. I kind of skipped over that installation process at the beginning. The products are very much designed to be on a weight rack, but it can be mobile. It can be put on the ground, on a table, etc. And all you have to do is be in front of it to jump, and we'll be able to measure jump height or RSI mod, a number of those different metrics.
For what it's worth, I'll jump in on that one. I lift out of an Olympic weightlifting gym, so there are no racks. So I use floor mode, and I'll literally put it on the ground and make sure that I'm in view, and I'll do jumps before, like those continuous jumps that are right in front of you. Those were done with the camera on the floor, basically leaned up against a red 25 kg plate. So yes, definitely possible.
Yeah, this is Kyle's legit data. He's in the green. Kyle, you're primed.
Awesome. Next one, Kenna Poptic has asked, when programming days, if you have an athlete who gets injured / something happens where they can't do that specific exercise, can you change it in real time? How seamless would that be?
Yep, we are literally just about to release, I think it's in beta or alpha right now, but exercise switches on the fly. So it will be very seamless. So you'll be able to actually go to the tablet, swap an exercise. And so that's coming out soon.
Love it. So Liam has asked, is it possible to remove reps or sets from a player's load velocity profile if they're bad reps or if they're injured rehab players?
Yes. So I can actually just demo that for you right now. So I go to my profile. So this is showing you some navigation. So let's say I stay on bench press and go to the last year. I'll sacrifice my data for the demo. This will actually, I'll pad my stats. So Connor won't like that. So let's say this is bad. I can click into that set directly from here, and I can report, let's say, error on it. So let's say I report wrong values, right, for whatever reason. I click save. You'll notice that this will actually adjust, right? So that rep went away, and in the load velocity profile, it will take a little bit of time, but it will update once you actually delete that data or mark it. It doesn't delete it. It just marks it as a bad value. So we don't take it into consideration, the load velocity profile.
Awesome. So couple more. Larry Miller has basically said, hey, he's got a prototype exercise machine that uses exercise bands. Can Perch calculate power when incorporating bands?
That is yeah, we've been thinking about that for the last 8 years. It's a challenge just because any accommodating resistance, we have no way of knowing exactly the tension in the band. So we will compute power based off of the load that you enter in, right? A constant load, but we can't do it based off of like a non-constant load that we can't directly measure. So unfortunately, no.
Absolutely. And then last one from Larry, he was wondering, have we done any studies on power output with bands and weights versus weights, or if you're aware of any of the literature, yeah, in terms of, I guess, velocity-based training.
Velocity-based training, specifically with accommodating resistance.
Yeah, I think he's trying to understand, okay, is there any difference between lifting with weight plus accommodating resistance versus just lifting with weight on the bar?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm actually not, I would need to look into it more. I'm not fully aware. Kyle, you would know it better than me. But also Larry, if you have specific questions, feel free to reach out afterwards and we'll guide you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll jump in a little bit on that. Yes, 100%. The biggest difference you'll see when adding accommodating resistance, whether that's bands or chains, is typically it lengthens out the acceleration phase into concentric, but it also lessens the load as you go deeper eccentrically, especially with bands and chains for that matter. As the ground takes the weight of the chains, the weight on the bar is lighter. So it allows the athlete to accelerate. And exactly to what Jacob brought up earlier, if you're someone who has a very high max strength, but your speed suffers, you'd be a perfect person to do that to help lengthen out the concentric phase and really focus on building velocity in that movement. So Jacob, I think that's all the questions that I saw in the chat.
We are right on time. Well, I really appreciate everybody who attended and followed along. It means a lot that you stayed to the end. So hopefully you got something out of it. And yeah, if you guys do have any further questions, you guys should be getting the recording. Feel free to respond directly to that or just reach out via the Catapult's website. So again, thanks so much for the time today. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the day.
Have a good one, everybody.